Thank you so much for joining Sharebird's The Essential Go-to-Market Show, tips and strategies, where we offer short video content and interview-style conversations with global product marketing leaders. I'm your host, Yasmeen Turayhi. Now, whether you're an early-stage startup or a public company, almost everyone struggles with the same question. What does it take to have a successful product launch? Today, I'll be talking to Avantika Vanti, Prabhakara, marketing advisor and the former head of product marketing at Opendoor, the former director of consumer and product marketing at Trulia. And I'm just so excited to welcome her to the show. She spent 4 years at Opendoor and she grew and led their biomarketing team as well as their product marketing team. So she has a wealth of experience and I'm excited to welcome her to the show.
Thanks, Yasmeen. Thanks so much for having me.
So I'm going to call you Vanti. That's okay.
That's perfect.
Okay, great. So Vanti, can you tell me about some of the top learnings and takeaways on launching a product successfully in the market in your tenure?
Absolutely. So I'd say the biggest one, most important for me, is keep the dialogue open between you and your consumers, your prospects, and your customers. And I think the good news is that a lot of companies, a lot of startups are starting to really focus on deeply understanding their consumers' needs and pain points before they even start the product development cycle. But I can't stop there. And especially as you go into go-to-market planning, you have to bring the customer and the consumer along with you on that journey and consistently get feedback at every step. So before, during, and after, while you're in the product development cycle, whether that is UX testing, message concept testing, naming feedback, whatever it might be, all of that is really going to help you get a leg up on your messaging and your positioning as you hit the market and go in field. And then lastly, when you go in field, you still have to keep that feedback cycle going, right? Whether it's callback research where you're reaching out and you're talking to customers, or whether you're putting in place different systems to kind of triangulate feedback through support or sales, app store reviews, whatever it might be, to really take that and consistently iterate on and optimize your campaigns. So that's the first one that I'd say is always top of mind. Another one along those lines that I think has been really helpful for me and a good learning is a strong positioning and messaging framework isn't enough if it just stops there. I see product marketing as like the glue that connects product, marketing, sales and support, the legal team often in many cases. And when we put together the positioning and messaging frameworks, it's really about evangelizing and getting input and feedback from everybody, all those constituents early on, so that one, you avoid a lot of back and forth throughout the entire process and you avoid confusion on what is the message, what is the narrative, what are the value props we're supposed to be talking about throughout the cycle or throughout the journey. But then also for the consumer, it's going to be such a better experience if you're reinforcing the same set of messages throughout the funnel. So those are the first two that come to mind.
Great. Yeah, it's so interesting. I think that a lot of companies make the mistake of doing very little customer research or doing customer research very early into the kind of the product life cycle and forgetting about that research midway and then also after a launch. So I love that. And I bet some of the questions from the audience would be like, how do you actually share, or how in the past have you shared that research with different teams? Because I think that's been also a difficult situation for a lot of product marketers. Even if we were able to get so much feedback from the customer, oftentimes it feels like either people in the company are too busy, or maybe there's no real space or platform to actually accept those messages or make them actionable in some way. So what has been your experience with that? Is there anything that you could share in that question?
Yeah, so the first thing is it's not just about sharing the research, it's about bringing people into the research. So how do you get your product counterparts, your marketing counterparts involved? And so it's not just hey, product marketing or your research team is driving this. It's really driven by everybody, and everybody is listening firsthand from the consumer. And I think obviously hearing it from the horse's mouth, right? Hearing it from the consumer is so much more powerful than ever seeing anything around here. Top 5 takeaways, of course, broad share out. It's really important. And I think ultimately, if you can get to a place where you're building in, whether it's personas, segments, you're building it into the fiber of how your company is even talking and thinking about their products, right? So I remember when Trulia got acquired by Zillow at Zillow, we had Beth the buyer, and everything was about Beth unique visitors. And I think that's, as much as you're able to bring that into the culture and the conversation at the company, that's ideal. But then, of course, as much as you can try and create different share outs, different ways to bring your customer to life, whether it be at all hands. And a lot of it starts at the top too. And like, one thing that Eric Wu at Opendoor used to do was talk to customers all the time. And it wasn't surprising for him to add an all hands, just, pick up the phone and share a customer call.
Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. I love that. Calling a customer live. I think that's so important actually, because I've seen a lot of companies where they sort of isolate the customer conversation to different functions and groups. And so a lot of times people who are like working on the product, engineers or other teams, oftentimes don't know what the customer is actually saying or what they're thinking. And so they become a little bit more detached. That's really cool. I want to talk a little bit about some of the biggest mistakes that you've experienced in the product marketing world. I think we all experience challenges. It's such a complex position and role because it's so cross-functional and there's a lot of unknowns associated with launches as well, even if you prepare as best as you can. So I'm just curious, like, what are some of the biggest mistakes that you could share with our audience?
Sure. That's a good question. So I think first, there's sometimes a belief that marketing's job is to just drive top of funnel traffic, and that product's job is then to harvest that traffic and convert that traffic. And that's not true at all. Marketing really needs to be focused on driving high intent traffic into the funnel, right? And then product marketing also needs to be really focused at then delivering the right message to the right customer at the right time, all the way through that funnel to keep it nice and tight so that you're really getting to an efficient CAC and a great customer experience. And so I would urge product marketers, and through the go-to-market process also, just focusing on downstream metrics, not just top of funnel metrics, and really measuring yourself on success at the bottom of the funnel. So that's one. Another one that comes to mind is, and I think this is a tricky one, and it very much depends on what stage of company you are as well in terms of resources and bandwidth to do this, but personalization. So I mentioned right message, right customer, right time. Everyone's heard that, but it's just so true that there's no one size fits all, right? As we think about building playbooks even, we really have to think about the nuances, and what works for one audience might not work for another audience. And so the importance of testing everything, messaging, creative formats, is so important. And I have tried to make sure that, I put aside a budget towards testing always, so that we are building the best playbook we can for that particular audience.
Yeah, such an important point. Thanks so much for sharing. I think a lot of us can get lost in just creating one or two target segments and then just forgetting about that extra layer. And every product is very different, of course, but I love that. To the extent that we can personalize, it's always the best option. And what about, we've been in this really existential year in many ways. And I'm imagining that there's been a lot of differences and nuances in the way that companies internally think about product marketing, as well as externally what customers are thinking about products. And so what are some of the interesting topics that product marketers should consider in this kind of, I say, post-quarantine world, which we're still unfortunately in?
I know.
But
hopefully soon.
Yeah, in a theoretical post-quarantine world.
Yeah. So the one that comes to mind is really how to build trust with your customers and your consumers. Like you said, that in the past couple of years, we've really seen the country be shaken in so many different ways. And many of us, rightfully so, approach things with a new level of skepticism. And there's a lot of misinformation. And as it's really hard to know whether a company is really on your side and whether your incentives are aligned. So I'd really urge product marketers to put themselves in the shoes of their consumers, of their customers. Think about what are they feeling? What are they thinking? What are their emotions? What's the why behind what they're doing? And how can we be honest and transparent, meet them where they are, and give them the information they need? And in a way that's honest and authentic and genuine. That trust really needs to come at every step of the funnel, at the top of funnel, throughout the funnel, with expectation management, whether it's education around with how-to videos, FAQs, whatever it may be, all the way through to sales scripts, right, that are authentic. So I really think building trust is going to be critical and something that we should all think about.
Yeah, I love that. I remember this quote. It was by Jonas Sachs, who wrote the book. I think it's called like Story Brand. Yeah, Story Wars or Story Brand, something like that. And he says, tell the truth. And if you can't tell the truth, change things so that you can. Because, you're absolutely right. I think right now people are just looking for integrity and authenticity and trust. And so that's how you can stick out really is to focus on those themes. So amen to that. And what about your main takeaway? I feel like I could talk to you for hours about the world of product marketing. So I know that this is short, but Vanti, can you tell me what would be your main takeaway on, let's say, being a good product marketer for people who are either aspiring to become product marketers or folks who are already product marketers?
Sure. So I know I started with this, but so I guess I'll end with it too, which is really know your customer and talk to them all the time and keep your finger on the pulse of what is going on. What are they thinking? What are they feeling? What are they doing? And know that things change all the time. Coming from the world of real estate where the market is up and down and they're, what customers are thinking and feeling one day may be completely different than what they're thinking and feeling the next day. So I think honestly, like putting ourselves in the shoes of our customers, empathizing with them really helps us both build marketing that is awesome, but also products that are really solving real consumer pain points and needs.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. And where can people find you if they want to connect with you or learn more about you?
Sure. You can look me up on LinkedIn. I'm happy to connect. Avantika Prabhakara. It might say Vanti on there too. But yeah, feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm always excited to help product marketers. And I completely agree with you that conversations like these are super helpful. So thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Vanti. It was such a pleasure. And you can stay tuned for upcoming shows with product marketing leaders from startups to public companies as they share some of their best tips and strategies on go-to-market. And send us a note. Tell us what you learned. Tag Sharebird, tag Vanti. We'd love to hear from you. And for those of you who are looking for more material on go-to-market, you can also check out my book, Product Marketing Debunked, and my second book, The Launch, A Product Marketer's Guide. Details in the bio. Thanks again.